Hi, everyone. It's Mitch Bach from Tourpreneur, and welcome to a very special, timely episode of the Tourpreneur Travel Business Podcast. I'm joined with Peter Syme, my partner in crime, and Ben Gollan, who is the, I guess, CEO, chief sandwich artist. I don't know what you call yourself, but Ben is a friend, a fellow New Yorker, and the proprietor of A Man and His Sandwich, which is an extremely Instagram and TikTok worthy tour around sandwiches and a fantastic Airbnb experience, and that's what we're here to talk about. So we have an Airbnb host, actually two of them. Peter Syme is also an Airbnb host. He uses it to stave off the doctor by going on hikes in Scotland. And then you have myself, who likes to just talk about Airbnb. And there is a lot to talk about. We are fresh off of the summer release, the 2025 summer release, introducing a wholly reimagined Airbnb Experiences that looks in the orbit of what has been previously imagined, but with some new updates. The addition of Airbnb services. And I guess rooms are just still rooms, at least for now. But they're all hanging out in a sexy new app with icons that go cling cling and lights go on and off. And really, really interesting times ahead. I want to start before we open this all up I want to read directly from an Airbnb press release. Airbnb today unveiled the most significant development in its history as it moves beyond accommodation. ... Trips launches today with three key areas: experiences, places, homes, with flights and services to be added in the future. This was a news release from 2016, and I have to say, I didn't see services coming, but it turns out it was announced in 2016. And to be fair, they did just say it's coming in the future. We just had to wait 10 years, and now we've got Airbnb services. Peter Syme, is Airbnb still a travel company?
Was Airbnb ever a travel company?
Oh,
I would argue Airbnb was one of the world's most outstanding technology startups. It wasn't a travel startup. It was an innovation-led, product-led technology startup that focused on design and was hugely successful based on beds, based on a simple concept of beds, which existed before they did. I mean, we were doing what they started selling way before they did, but not at the scale and the branding and the design and the execution that they did it. So I would argue they were never a travel company. I would argue today they may be moving away from being a technology company because what they're moving in is to become a retailer, whereas they were product-led before and innovation-led. And are we now just moving in to become another OTA of retail, albeit with more products?
well, we have some examples. We have examples of companies who have tried to get into other ancillary services under the umbrella of a single brand. I could think of Uber and Amazon, for example, where I could buy baby diapers and a big screen TV and stream movies all under the Amazon brand. Uber for, I mean, literally in startup land, there's the Uber 4X model because Uber's tried everything under the sun to be delivered. At one point, I think I could stick a tomato in the back seat of an Uber and it would get delivered to my friend. Um, so it's not new, the idea of creating the everything app, throwing it all in and tying it up with a really sexy brand and going out and just getting people addicted to using it for their services. Is that what Airbnb is doing? Are they going above and beyond in the hopes? I mean, listen, they've also added digital identity cards. So clearly something's in the mix that is much bigger than the idea that we're just going to keep delivering great beds and services and hotels and whatever else.
Go on, Sandwich Man. You got an answer for that?
Yeah, look,
Well,
it's definitely sexy. If anything, the new app looks awesome. And from an experienced host perspective, specifically, it looks particularly awesome because experiences are front and center on the app for the very first time in years. There is symbolic evidence that experiences and also now services are being treated as a tri-pillar of things that Airbnb is offering to customers and guests. And that's something from the experiences side of the world we've been wanting to see since they disappeared over the pandemic, when Airbnb had to kind of refocus back on its core business of beds. You are going to find out through this interview that I am annoyingly optimistic about the future of Airbnb experiences. That is completely biased by the fact that that's how I got my start in this entire world. So I know I come from a biased and overly positive and optimistic position, but it's really exciting from the experiences cohort. And I was really, really lucky to be in the room for the summer release 2 days ago now. It's a very, very exciting time to be in the Airbnb experience host.
Talk me through what your experience was of this release, and also of meeting Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner was definitely in the room. I did have to explain to a couple of the younger experience hosts who Kevin Costner was, which aged me dramatically in that very, very second. The experience to get from what I'll call Airbnb 1.0 to Airbnb 2.0 was a bit of a bumpy road. I think Airbnb is the first to admit that the process to migrate experiences that have been on the platform from the old platform to the new one had some challenges, had a lot of bumps. It was definitely not perfect. There's definitely a lot of work into it. But the longer it has gone on, the better they have got at hearing feedback, making changes, adapting, and making that process a lot smoother, from putting your experience up as an application to having it seen and booked on the new website, the new app.
What's meaningfully changed for you as an experience host?
In terms of the new world of Airbnb experiences?
Yeah, and this too, we were happy to partner with them a couple of months ago to soft announce to the operator community a variety of updates or innovations and new features and things. And so, just from your on the ground experience, and you do a lot with Airbnb, what feels new and what feels helpful to you in this new version?
I mean, the overarching thing is the focus on experiences. For a long time, we were the how do I say this diplomatically, the ugly stepsister in Airbnb's world. They had to focus on homes. That's their bread and butter. And experiences, when they launched in 2016, 2017, was really amazing. It was flashy, it was exciting, and then they pared back on that. And there hasn't really been a lot of marketing done on experiences since 2019, just for the fact that they have elevated experiences into this position is incredibly exciting and wonderful. And we can tell as hosts that there is a focus on driving eyeballs for the very first time in years towards experiences and towards services as well. There seems to be a huge push to get people onto the platform and to get them on for far more than just beds. That's super exciting. There's also some practical matters. The API connection to Fair Harbor is something that hosts have been screaming for forever. Marketing campaigns have already been seen in the last 48 hours. New ads on television. My Instagram algorithm is filled with Airbnb experiences. Airbnb's Instagram account is responding to people who are posting on social media platforms. So you can tell there is a huge drive, and they're looking to experienced hosts to help them along this journey to really put experiences back to the top of mind for travelers.
I mean, I know you talk about the symbolic front and center of the icon, but they also announced $250 million worth of money spent on promoting experiences. Not bad.
Yeah, it's huge. It's amazing. Those of us who've been with Airbnb for a long time have seen the journey, have been seen our own journeys, our own booking journeys with Airbnb. And to have gone through some lean times, as everyone did in this industry during the pandemic, and feeling like we're coming out the other side of that now, and to have this support from Airbnb, both financially with your marketing campaign, the marketing campaign, as you mentioned, and this sense of community being built again is really cool. It's really exciting.
Here's something I don't understand. Well, something. There's millions of things I don't understand.
keep
But
it to 20 things.
But here's something I don't understand. Now, I want this to be a success. I've said for years and years, Airbnb should be the most successful OTA we have for suppliers to distribute for you. Why? Because they know every accommodation they have in every city. They know the profile of the people in the accommodation, and they know the geolocation of the experiences to the accommodation. You only need a very simple algorithm there, throw in some weather as well, curate the product, give the customers a choice of 3 to 10 products, and you will see a conversion rate go through the roof. So this stuff isn't rocket science. They should be the most successful OTA and experiences, because the cost of acquiring customers is not the same as the other OTAs, because they get them through the platform for their accommodation. However, they are an accommodation company. They are the second most value travel tech company, I would argue, technology company, second most valuable travel company in the world at 85 billion, if I remember, around about 85 billion, half of Booking at 172 billion. With the best will in the world, even if they are the most successful experiences OTA, which will take a long time to do, that's not going to move the financial needle versus expanding their accommodation in more countries. 80% of Airbnb's accommodation bookings come from 10 countries. USA being a big one, and Europe being a big network of them. So as a financial model to move that stock price, which is their responsibility, even if they went and bought Get Your Guide and Viator together, it wouldn't move the needle on their financials much. Whereas adding another 20 countries of serious volume and accommodation does. So there's a financial aspect I don't understand of this play going out there, unless the other bit outside experiences, the let's go get my hair cut, let's get my nails done, let's get a massage on the way home, and get my food ordered in because I'm incapable of cooking anymore because I now live in New York. Maybe that's a much bigger market than I know. Maybe that's much bigger in experiences. So maybe this whole play has a value that can move the financial needle, but experiences on their own cannot move that financial needle anywhere like accommodation can, whether they stuck with rental accommodation or whether they went hotel accommodation. And that's just factual numbers.
Yeah, although I hate to quote sources, but there's a lot of reporting about the motivation behind travel at the moment, and the motivation being people want to go to a destination to do experiences or to do activities. They're not traveling to stay at a home or a hotel necessarily. They're traveling somewhere to go and eat amazing sandwiches in New York, to eat sushi in Tokyo, to I should come up with a third example that I can't off the top of my head. So there is a large market cap out there for experiences, and once you're in a location, you do want to do those organized experiences and activities, but you also might want to stay at home and bring in that private chef and have that amazing meal basically delivered to you. You're going to a Broadway show. You want to doll yourself up. So you get in a hairdresser, you get in a makeup artist. I think it's just a low hanging fruit that I think it's a potentially really great move to do.
But if I live in a destination, I know all of these things. I don't go to Airbnb to book my takeaway or book a chef. I know that stuff. I know the barbers and the hairdressers around here. I know, you know what I mean? If I'm on vacation or if I'm working on business and I'm in a city I don't know, that's different. But the city I'm living in, I don't need to go to Airbnb for that stuff.
I disagree, because if I have an extremely sexy and well-known UX and an app that I go to that I can just depend on the ease of it, I will do that. I being your typical customer, right? It's going to become once again the whole OTA versus book direct thing, right? My hair cutter, I can go onto his crappy website, which lists his phone number and ring him up and hope that he picks up, which is like my current system. But if he goes onto Airbnb and I just log on to this admittedly sexy app and it's like bing, 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 done, done, done. I mean, that's to me, it's an eyeballs on apps thing. Yes, it's about the destination, but to me, it's about a customer that is like hanging out on this app all year long and doing a whole bunch of things with it. So to me, it has much larger implications for a customer journey that extends beyond a travel experience, and that's why I asked if it's a travel app at all anymore.
And anecdotally, what I'll say from the experiences side of things, prior to COVID, the amount of local New Yorkers who would come on a sandwich tour was pretty low, quite low. Post COVID, that has changed dramatically. Now, still traditionally, it's tourists visiting New York is the majority of my guests, but it is doubled, tripled, maybe even quadrupled the amount of New Yorkers I get who once thought, oh, I know where to get a sandwich in New York City. I don't need to pay this guy to do that.
Yeah.
The pandemic taught us to not take for granted what's in our backyard. We can actually explore where we are. And maybe I'll give this guy with a funny accent a go to take me to a neighborhood that I don't spend a lot of time in, that who is an expert in this little neighborhood, this little area, this little subject matter, and have a lot of fun in my own city. So I've seen the change on the experiences side, which I think Airbnb can then see and replicate on the services side as well.
I mean, what the
Yeah, I
trying to
mean,
address here is the word for this is infrequency, isn't it? Every travel brand, no matter how big and how giant, suffers from the infrequency of use. So the big play here is they're trying to become a frequent user app of people in all destinations, and they don't really care if that's a travel product anymore. It's just a product. So in Mitch's world, because they're in New York and they can't cook, they have to go to the app so they can get some food and sustain themselves for the next day. And that is a big, big, giant move that if they pull it off, is probably going to move that financial needle by billions and billions. But it is such a big move. I have concerns that the last 4 attempts on just the experiences side didn't work that great. This is 10 times bigger than the experiences side.
yeah, I mean, Ben, you called it low-hanging fruit. Oh yeah, just go sign up a few 100 million hairdressers and we're good. Not too bad.
A big lift for low-hanging fruit.
You know what though? What you're not wrong about is it actually seems like an easier lift than experiences. Like experiences, weirdly to me, is like not sidelined. It's in the middle, but it's still the sexy stepsister. It's the best looking, but it's still really freaking hard, and it's different than services. And to me, in FocusWire, I told them I called this brilliantly off brand. Like there's nothing less on brand than calling your plumber via the Airbnb app. And yet if I'm looking to do mass scaling of something that like proves to be a real habitual revenue driver, I would do that actually with that much more than I would trying to grow my own independent inventory of unique, unforgettable experience creators.
It's true, but I can also see an amazing crossover, right? So why doesn't someone do a service of a personal trainer in the morning in New York and then come and eat sandwiches because they've earned the sandwiches? Why can't I get a photographer to come alongside my tour and take amazing shots in these unique destinations while we eat? So I think there's the potential crossover between them and adding on top.
Or what if you finish your sandwich tour and then go into somebody's home and cook them a sandwich? And now you're both a service and an experience. You are completing Joe Pine's entire ladder of economic value in one person. That's what's weird to me about this.
Well, this is kind of true as well, because during COVID, we did the virtual experiences, right? Virtual experiences kept my business alive. I've never been as busy as I was doing virtual sandwich cooking classes. They're a huge hit, particularly for corporate groups, particularly for disparate friends and family members. And so changing the virtual service or experience to an in-person one is definitely feasible.
Where I'm just thinking this through as you guys are chatting away there, where this starts to really get interesting if they pull this off. And I'm back to money and factual stuff again because I'm Scottish and boring and I like money. If they pull this off, they'll certainly not be viewed as a travel hospitality company going forward. If they made this services side huge, they then get viewed as a technology. I've always said they're a technology company, but the market doesn't view them as a technology company. It views them as a travel/hospitality company. If they pull off the services side and they start to retail everything, they definitely get viewed as a technology company. That has a significant impact on their multiples. So their value would launch higher by being viewed as a technology company than a hospitality company. Now, these guys are much smarter than me. Maybe that's the play in the long run. I mean, I'm sure at some point in the past he said he wanted to be $1 trillion company. Well, he's a long, long way away from that. But this may be the route to that. I don't know.
I mean, I think that $1 trillion is a lofty goal, but I don't think Airbnb is scared of lofty goals. Like back 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when I was growing up, the thing you were told not to do was get into a car with strangers or go into a stranger's house. And then Airbnb and Uber came along and changed that completely on its head. So they've already done it once. I don't understand. I don't see why they can't do it again.
Yeah, but that's reverse. That's actually reversing the narrative, because Airbnb was not a lofty goal. They weren't a company with a lofty goal that tried to change the world. They saw a problem and they figured it out, and then they scaled the figuring out of that problem. I'm not listen. I mean, it's scaled into an amazing company, like a juggernaut of a company. I'm not diminishing it, but there's a certain founders issue that happens, where it happens with like surgeons, where I'm a surgeon, so I should probably also be a genius over in this area as well. Like, I mean, I'm a rocket scientist, so my opinions on politics are also equally as genius, right? There's a little bit of a category error that happens, and it happens with any company, and it's why you see it's why you saw Apple fail at certain things. And so, these things aren't written in stone. And like the open question right now in the chatter, Wired magazine, for example, says that like this grew out of a midlife crisis. There's a really interesting article to see the genesis of this new transformation. There's stuff going around online, that says, has Airbnb lost the plot? Or have they found something big? And I mean, I think it's an open question, because that press release from 10 years ago announced the connected trip, which in a certain way is like being rebirthed again now under just some different components. But that 2016 press release looks eerily familiar with the promises that have just been made again on this round, and with the same level of best-in-class storytelling around that promise. And yet it doesn't change some of the fundamentals of experiences, for example, which is, once again, we're living in this experiences world of only the weirdest and most unique and special, sandwich, like Australian men hawking sandwiches in New York and all of this, right? And it makes for a great release, but there's still that services component of experiences, which is going to be the habitual walk-in tours and some of those things that make a company successful that aren't as sexy. And that still, to me, it still remains a little bit open for debate after kind of what I've seen.
To summarise what you just said, Mitch, that's storytelling versus execution. It's as simple as that. They tell the world's fantastic stories. They put great branding out, great stories. But they're now trying to storytell and then execute on a massive long tail. And that long tail has never been executed by anybody else before at scale, because everybody keeps talking the long tail and great stories, but then they default to mass market, selling the big wheel and the attractions and the museums and the simple little things to ticket. So it's storytelling versus execution. We in the industry will all want the long tail to be executed on and become the front and center. But the financial reality is it's the volume ticketed, not interesting product that sells the volume.
And it's almost like instead of diving into that world, they just went to services instead.
Yeah, get your plumber.
Instead of he chose a plumber over a hop on hop off bus to sell.
Yeah, although once you've done your hop on hop off bus, come and eat a sandwich with Ben Gollan at a Manny sandwich to us.
And after you get off that bus, you need a bathroom, so that plumber better be doing his job. And after a sandwich tour, you need a bathroom, I imagine. So let's talk about what they did engineer and execute on well, which is the supplier portal side of things, the host back end. I've had a look at it. It looks really clean, really good. There's still new features that are being rolled out, especially kind of in the world of multi-host and assigning hosts to tours and things. But what's your read on kind of some of that stuff, which is really not sexy enough to make it into a keynote, but really helpful and practical for the operators?
Yeah, they've definitely made it look great. They've made it quite user-friendly eventually. They've stripped back a lot of stuff and put the customer's experience first. It's beautiful to look at. It's photograph forward and short bursts of information forward. As much information as I want to give to all of my guests, me as well as human nature, we don't want to read a whole lot of stuff. We don't want to read below the headline. So having those short bursts of information, be it the name, the short descriptions, the photographed itineraries, I think it's going to be really great for the mobile world that we live in, and flicking through with your thumbs and just seeing the bits of information you need up front to make your decision, and our ability to put those pieces of information in strategically as hosts, hopefully is going to work well in the long term. It's still a platform that's been live for 48 hours. Us old hosts are now new hosts in one sense of the world in how to work through the system. But visually, it looks great. And for the shorter attention span that I and many others have right now, I think that's great.
Have you tried the booking software integration? Is it live for you yet at all?
I have decided to hold off on that just till the dust settles. But it's top of my priority list. I just want to give it a minute. The rush will happen. I can manage one extra calendar for an extra couple of weeks, and then I'll go into the integration.
There's another small change that has not been advertised at all, but it is a huge game changer for a lot of our community, which is relaxing the exclusivity requirement.
Yeah.
Was that communicated to you, or was it just a quiet change in the terms and conditions that was sort of noticed?
It was just a quiet TCs. I never got it any other way. It was just reading the TCs. And it wasn't even, it was weirdly worded, if I remember. But it was a change.
I think Pete said it well.
Well, they're between a rock and a hard place, because they've just announced how important it is to see all of your guests' names, and they can connect with each other and message each other in this social aspect or the community aspect of the app, which I think is brilliant.
Yes.
But they've also announced API connectivity with a lot of guests who will not then be displayed in that. And they're now also officially allowing that. And so I will have found the 5 people from Airbnb that I've connected with. And then I arrive from my tour, and there's going to be 4 more people from 4 other countries that I didn't know were going to be there. I mean, that's going to be the reality of it.
Yeah, look, the connectivity thing is awesome. It's hard to foster that in any app. Being able to have that connective point where we can share photographs and videos and exchange details with each other and actually stay mates beyond your 2 hours is great, because I know anecdotally, again, I have so many great mates who've started out as people who came on my tour. And I see friendships forming on all of our tours every time. And so being able to take that to another level is great. There is going to be that tension then with guests from other platforms, other destinations. I don't know what the solution is to that. What will be interesting here is in New York City and in places like, I think it's Barcelona and then maybe even SF, where there are some restrictions around homes for Airbnb, how they use this new experiences world to showcase that it can be this massive business that doesn't get the same pipeline as of home guests at the same time. But I think if it's going to work anywhere, it's going to work in New York City. I mean, it's New York City. We're the best city in the world. Again, I'm very biased. So if experience is going to work, it's going to work here.
And we're all lonely and miserable, and so that community aspect I'm excited about. I think there's a lot of room to innovate in that space. Like once I have a verified profile, and once there's reasons for me to be hanging out on this app, and I can do things like book services, of course, but I could book a group dinner. I mean, to me, one of my favorite apps out there is Time Left, which is a subscription based way to just go have dinners with strangers. Why can't that be Airbnb? And now, presto, I'm using the app once a month or twice a month to just go and find some new people in my social circle and to have dinner with or to do an activity with or whatever. So to me, Hostel World did this. They kind of turned it on the head, the idea of going to a hostel to stay, but they turned it into a place to meet friends, and the hostel was just the place where you did it, and they made a very big social app out of it. I thought that was a brilliant move. Brian ended with his keynote with, we've all gone too deep down this world of screens and disconnection, and so there's a real impetus in, I guess, the ethos of what they're building right now to return to the world of connection. I think it's brilliant.
As you pair are both from New York City, I have to go to say my experience in multiple visits to New York City is it is full of people that like to get their photography taken. They spend a lot of time on massages and spa treatments. They have a personal trainer. They get their hair done. They need their meals prepared for them. So I do think there is a market in New York City, but for the rest of us normal people who can just do all this stuff anyway, we'll just get on with it.
The man that basically lives where the hobbits live calls himself normal, right? One pub, Pete lives in a tree trunk with 19 dogs. Yeah, you're the normal one. Just to close out, Ben, you're excited. Where do you want to see this all going? Like what in your eyes is a good next path for Airbnb to follow?
Great question. It's an interesting one, right? Because as I said earlier, I started with Airbnb, and at first this whole sandwich malarkey was just a hobby. And I just did it for a couple of years, only with Airbnb, for a bit of fun, to meet amazing people, to eat and drink with them. And then it became a full-time thing and a profession. And like any professional, I can't rely. Pete drives this into everyone who listens to him in Tourpreneur. You can't rely on just one source to get your guests, and so opened that up wider for my own personal business. And then when Airbnb homes, they weren't banned, but they were restricted heavily here in New York City. That impacted myself and my New York City Airbnb host community quite dramatically. We didn't have the funnel of guests through homes. And it coincided with the pandemic, where Airbnb had to focus only on homes. The big step for the next future I want is for Airbnb to continue this focus on experiences, because I think it's very rare for people to go home to where they're from and talk about the place that they stayed in. It does happen occasionally, but the memories and the everlasting moments and experiences they take away is from what they do in the destination. It is from that wacky, weird sandwich tour. It is from a Turkish coffee fortune reading. It is from a side part drive around Brooklyn. It is from pizza tours. It is from bagel classes. And so what I want from Airbnb is kind of what they're doing, and is to realize the amazing value and the amazing asset they have in experiences hosts, because they've got this cohort of individuals who have put so much time into their passion and decided to craft their little passionate weird world into this amazing thing to share with others who are coming to New York or are coming to other destinations. So my future mindset for Airbnb is to continue on this very path, even if it does get challenging, even if some of Pete's predictions are correct, to continue down and to trust us experience hosts that we are going to deliver this amazing thing that elevates travel platforms into this wild success.
Well, it's been 10 years. They haven't given up on you yet. So,
Exactly.
Pete, Get Your Guides raised about $1 billion, and Airbnb just announced that they are spending a quarter of that to market experiences. Should Get Your Guide be freaked out right now? Also, they just stole the name Originals from Get Your Guide.
Yeah, I think it helps everybody. I mean, no one's got a big market share in Viator, Get Your Guide, about 1% each, just over 1%, maybe. Again, no one's got a big market share here, so there's a huge market for Airbnb to go at here that I don't think really damages Viator or Get Your Guide. I do think they acquire customers much cheaper than Viator and Get Your Guide, because they can acquire customers from their accommodation. What do I want them to do? One, I want them to be successful. This is like 10 years in of trying this. I want them to be successful. To do that, to me, you go for the easy stuff first. Like I said before, you know where the people are, you know the profile of the people, you know where the experience hosts are. Just get a smart, simple algo that matches all that together. And then you've really got to up the game to get this execution level to the same level as the storytelling. The storytelling's world class, but it becomes a bit same if the execution doesn't match up.
You know who's not happy is, from what I can tell and from the people I've talked to, the lodging hosts. I don't know why they haven't created more of a seamless conduit between the lodging hosts and their recommendation of these services and tying them into bundles, packages, upsells, cross sells. As it stands currently, Airbnb just announced that 1 million new people are going to be coming into the home owner's home as private chefs or as makeup artists or whatever. And the lodging host doesn't really get any cut of that, as far as I can tell.
Or have they give permission for that, for other people to be in there, carrying out a commercial activity?
Ben?
That gets all very complicated. I'm sure they've thought of that stuff.
Yeah.
Again, yeah.
Look, the lawyer, the former lawyer in me says that that's outside of my wheelhouse, and probably not something for me to comment on at this junction.
All right, we've reached the no comment portion of the podcast, which means we've exhausted our avenues of conversation with Ben. Ben, thank you, though. I wanted somebody who was optimistic, who has experience, long-term experience with him, to give us a real take on the situation and your experience, and it's great. I'm really thankful for you to share that. And nobody out there in Tourpreneur land can disagree with him, because it's his experience as an actual Airbnb host. So stop it.
Yeah, look, thank you, mate. I am going to be annoyingly optimistic, but as Pete just said, I want them to be successful, because if Airbnb is successful, others will be successful as well. I'm a massive believer in growing the pie, not the slice. And so I hope Airbnb does well. I hope Get Your Guide does well. I hope Vieta does well, and all the others out there too, which I will continue to be fans of and work with. But I think it's genuinely an exciting time, despite some of our more recent frustrations, to be in this world, to be an experienced host. So I encourage others to have patience, to be excited, and to continue along this journey with the rest of us.
I'm just impressed you managed to get pie and slice into the sandwich, man. They're brilliant.
I live in New York, mate, where it's all about the pies and the slices.
You know, you've been harping on about is a hot dog a sandwich for a long time. Have you asked, is a slice of pizza a sandwich?
Only every single tour I go on, yes, it is a sandwich. There's no difference between it and a hot dog.
Well, maybe one day I'll get invited on one of your tours, but I guess we're in two
You took
different
me,
parts of
you
Brooklyn.
took me for a great sandwich last time I was in New York. Didn't invite you.
That is true. But that was our secret. That was our secret.
We got to get up my optimism. Ben, thank you. Pete, thank you. Appreciate it. And go eat and drink and be merry.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, Ben.